Hello, everyone. Welcome to this month's Wednesday 101 webinar. I'm Leslie Scott. I'm the founder of Re.Useful, and we're a platform that matches people with still good stuff with nonprofit organizations, schools, and churches that can put it to good use. And we also have these webinars every month just focused on some sort of sustainability focused topic. It could be gardening or cooking, as we're going to have today, or something more on a broader perspective. The first one of the year was on the circular economy. So you can check out our YouTube channel, and we've got some webinars from the past up there. This one will also be up there for your review. And so today it's my pleasure to introduce Chris Williams. And Chris, I'll let you tell everyone a little bit more about yourself. And while she's doing that, it'd be great if people could drop in the chat where you're tuning in from, and then also why you decided to join us today. So Chris, take it away.
All right. Thank you, Leslie. Thank you guys for joining me today here at Agape Grow Education Center. I'll just tell you a little bit about what we're doing here and trying to change this part of Kansas City. We are in a high risk area of town that is very distressed, and we are trying to teach people how to garden, how to cook from the garden, and one of the ways is with fermenting. And so we do canning and all different types of classes here too. So my husband and I moved here in 2019 and started setting up the garden and started building the education center. And so our farm is actually called Precious Petals and Pepperberries, but the education center is Agape Grow Education Center. So thank you again for joining us today. And today we are going to talk about fermenting. And I can't see far to my computer to see if anybody asks questions. So Leslie, if somebody does ask a question, would you please let me know? I'm going to do a little bit of background on fermenting and then show you some different ways to ferment and actually do a hands-on in front of you on sauerkraut. So first of all, why fermented foods? Fermented foods are very, very good for you. It's good for your digestive system. And some people, when I bring up fermented foods and for them to eat it, they kind of turn their nose up to it because they're like, ooh, no. But people don't realize how much fermented food they already eat daily. So we're going to talk just a little bit about some of those. And I'm going to attempt to grab my phone and kind of show around so you're not just having to look at me. And so hopefully it'll work without me turning it off here. So some of the different types of fermented foods is olives. So that's counted as a ferment. The fish sauce.
Chris, just a sec. Let me see if I can get your phone to be the one that's the focus. So that is, there you are. There we are.
Okay. All right. So the fish sauce is a fermented food. Olives, Worcestershire, which a lot of us use that weekly. Of course, apple cider vinegar or any of the vinegars are a ferment. Sourdough, to make sourdough bread, is a ferment. Greek yogurt is another ferment. And a lot of people know that one. And cheese is counted as a ferment. So there's a lot of different types of ferments that we eat daily. I'm going to show you some of the different ferments that we do here at Agape Grow Education Center. We make kombucha, and this is they're not mushrooms, but they're scobies is what they're called. And this is to make your fermented tea. Okay. We have some sunchokes, which is a really good low carb product that we grow here that actually helps diabetics to be able to have like a potato without all that starch in it. And we'll talk a little bit more about starch and sugars here in a little bit. I do fermented grape leaves for dalmas, jalapenos and pickles, of course. Lots of sauerkrauts. We do about 6 different sauerkrauts. We do kimchi. Horseradish is counted as a ferment. Now, this is a different ferment because we are actually putting it straight into vinegar. And so there are different types of ferments, but that's another one. And then we do what's called the health tonic, which is a really popular one. People call it fire cider. I'm trying to think of some of the other names, but this is something that's really good for you. And we don't drain ours off like other people do. We use it more as a salsa, and not on chips, but we put it into different things. So it's a really good product again. All right, and then I want to talk just a little bit about salts. And salt is important in a ferment, or you can do a vinegar ferment, which we're not going to do today, but I want to talk more about the salts. The bad salt is the iodine salt. Let's see. Can you guys see it? Am I pointing right? There. Okay. So this is not one you want to use. Don't even buy it anymore. There's so many good salts out there. This is only for display for in our kitchen. So I buy a lot of sea salts and Himalayan salts. Oh, you see that? Another one is the kosher salts that are good. Okay. And if you have canning salts, I'm probably making you guys all dizzy. I'm sorry. So the canning salt works great for fermenting too. So you're wanting to use any of this type of salt. Today we are going to be using the sea salt. Okay. Some of the other things that you need when you are canning, you need a glass jar, and it can be any size. You need something to be able to push everything down into the jar. So I have a rolling pin. My antique rolling pin is my favorite thing, but a wooden spoon works great. If I can find it to show you. Or I don't know, this is type of plunger that is actually for a fermenting kit that I got. Okay. Also, you need weights. So I have glass weights. If I don't have weights, then I'll use a plate, one of my ceramic plates to push it down in. I also, if I'm doing it 5 gallons at a time, I will actually do it in my great big 5-gallon bucket, and that's where the plates go in. So it really holds it down good there. Or I can do a 2.5-gallon bucket. So most of you are going to probably not want to do much over a gallon at a time. But so any of these work. Also, you can get different tops. I tend to most of the time use my canning jars. If I'm using the 1/2 gallon, I'll do my canning jars and just put it on lightly. And that way the air can be being released as it's fermenting. But you can buy these little cool gadgets here and put a hole in your tin, your canning jar lid, and go on and use those. There's also what's called a nipple, and I could not find mine. I have not used them in a long time. But it's like a baby bottle nipple that goes on top of one of the larger jars like this. You can also just use cheesecloth and put it over the top, several layers of cheesecloth, and then rubber band it on or tie it on. And that works too for your fermenting. So those are just some of the supplies that you need. Let's see. Okay, so I am going to show you while my hands are kind of clean right now. in my 5-gallon bucket, I have a kimchi in here, and it looks kind of scary right now. Let's see if I can get it so that you can see it. So there's the plate. That top part is not immersed right now in fluid, but on this side there is fluid, if you guys can see that. And so when I do this up, because this other side looks kind of dried out, I'll just scrape it off and throw it away, put it in my compost. Okay, so that's one way I do it. And then the other way that I do is, this one is our Japanese sauerkraut. And what's on top there is just a whole bunch of the leaves that I took off from the cabbage, just to keep the good stuff down underneath. So under there is the good product. When I am touching any of my products, I always have my gloves on after they have fermented, because I do not want to introduce anything bad into my live ferment, because then the bacteria will go in there and it will ruin everything. One of the other things that I do when I'm removing it from a big jar into a small jar, I always go on and sterilize my jar and my lids and the utensils that I'm using, because it's already went through the getting rid of the bad bacteria, the good bacteria is in there. And so again, I don't want to introduce anything bad. So everything gets sterilized then. So today I don't sterilize it. I wash it with soap and hot water. And then it does just great. Let's see. Hands are always clean. I clean my produce. And so beforehand today, I went on and washed the cabbage off. And so it is all ready. And whatever product I put in there, if I'm putting in carrots or onions, everything I wash up front. And so that everything is ready and prepared ahead of time. Leslie, is there anybody asking questions yet?
Yeah, great timing. So Linda is asking, do you weigh your salt since the grains can be different sizes?
I don't actually weigh the salts, because like this Himalayan salt here is a large cubed one. I don't use it for this. It just takes me too long to get it to melt down, basically. But what I will do on my other ones is like this here. Let's see. For today's lesson, we're not doing this type of ferment. But if I was doing something with jalapenos, okay, and I have to make the fluid ahead of time, I go on and use my distilled water, and I add, I didn't look at the exact measurements today, but it's about 2 tablespoons, I believe, in a gallon of water, and I let it dissolve. And so I just do it by weight, that, or by tablespoons and teaspoons. So today we're going to be using the teaspoons and tablespoons for what we're doing. But so this is a different type of ferment. Today we're going to make our brine from the cabbage itself by massaging it. Did that answer your question?
Linda,
you guys still there?
You can come out. She said in chat, yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. Let's see. So another thing that I didn't bring up is why ferments are so good for you. Ferments help do digestion, aid in it. It can actually help you lose weight, because you're digesting your food properly, and your bowels are starting to work properly, and it actually can help with the not getting heart disease, keeps you from risk of it. And so it's really, really good. If you can keep your gut healthy, then you've got a better outcome in the long run for everything that's going on in your body. So fermenting is a very ancient technique of processing. So it's been around for thousands of years. Um, it is microorganisms like yeast and bacteria that are kind of digesting or eating the carbs and the sugar in it. And I talked about that a little bit ago about the sunchokes or Jerusalem artichokes. Um, so it's really great for a diabetic because it's processing those sugars in there, digesting them, and is just very beneficial. It also it's helping digest. So something that make if you ate straight green pepper and then you ate one that was fermented, that one that's fermented is going to have already pre-digestion going on, so your body's not going to work as hard in getting those nutrition out of it. So that's one of the reasons why it's so good to eat ferments. um, let's see. So I think we're going to go on and start making this ferment. And what I do ahead of time is I weigh my cabbage. And I told you I already washed it. I'm going to first take off some of these outer layers of the cabbage leaves. And I don't throw them away yet because when I showed you the picture of the Japanese cabbage with the really ugly looking cabbage leaves on top, I will be putting that in the gallon jar today, but I'll put this on top of it and help to keep it submerged under the brine. So I'm going to take off of those. And I want to show you a difference too. Some people tend to weigh their cabbage up front, and I don't. I do my cabbage after I've cut it because, like right now, this one is weighing almost 3 1/4 pounds. But by the time I take the core out and just get it chopped up, then it's really going to be closer to 3 pounds. So I'm going to go on and do that right now. And I do have already some that I chopped up here. And I like my I'm making sauerkraut. I'm doing a fennel sauerkraut today. And I like mine fairly small in size. So I'm going to cut right along the edge of the core and then start just cutting very small.
Chris, can you angle your camera down a little bit so we can see what you're doing? That's perfect.
Okay. All right, so I'm just cutting it in real small, long pieces to start with. And I have, after we get it done here, I'm going to continue making more sauerkraut because I will be doing quite a bit because I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 heads over there to do, all about 3 pounds. So after I do it in the long slithers, julienne style, I'm going to go on and just cut it right down the middle here, just so it's not quite as long. I don't want to eat it on a hot dog or something and it just falls all over my face. So what I've got over here is some that I already pre-cut. It is about 2 3/4 pounds right there. So I'm going to go on and put it into my clean bowl and put this in. So I've got 2 3/4, and see what this comes up to. So there's 3 3/4. And so when you're doing your salt brine, there is a high amount you can put in or a low amount. I tend to go right into that middle on most of mine. And I also taste it before I'm totally done, because if it's not tasting salty enough, then it's not salty enough. So I'm just going to cut up just this little bit more here and add it to it. I love cabbage. So this this sauerkraut is just done with the regular cabbage. Kimchi is done with a Napa cabbage, which I'll be doing here in another about a month. Our Napa cabbage will be ready. That's out in the garden then. And if you are a fan of sauerkraut, or you're just starting to learn, this is the time to get your cabbage right now at the store while it's inexpensive at this time of year. So, all right. Oops, I just put all that in there. I'm going to take it out and weigh it. Okay. So 2 3/4, 3 3/4. Okay, so that is just a little over 4 pounds. So that's what we're going to work with right now. So let me go on and get this moved out of the way. All right, so got a good amount in here. Okay, so 4 pounds is what we're going to call that. And we are putting in 2 teaspoons for every pound. So I've got 4 pounds, so I need 8 teaspoons. 8 teaspoons is actually about 2.5 tablespoons. And yes, I have a cheat chart back here. So I pre-do a lot of, I don't keep this memorized. So I'm going to go and sprinkle it in here, 2.5 tablespoons. Okay. And then I'm going to start massaging this. And so I'm just picking it up and squeezing it, getting that fluid that the salt will start bringing out in it. I can already see there was a piece of fluid I just saw. I mean, it works pretty fast, but this is an exercise. So if you're needing an exercise program, fermenting is also another good thing to do because you can build your biceps and your triceps and everything all at the same time and enjoy some great fermented food. I doubt you're going to be able to see how can you guys see any of the liquid already? I mean, I can see lots of water already forming on each little piece. It doesn't take too long to get a good brine going.
Chris, when I was a kid, my job was to pound the cabbage in the brine with this square mallet, wooden mallet kind of thing that my grandma had. She would put it in her big crock, and my job as the kid was to pound the cabbage before it went down into the root cellar.
So I can really see a difference already. It is really breaking down a lot. I don't know if you guys can see that.
We can see it when you have it in your hands, how it's really changing.
Okay. Yeah, so it doesn't take too long at all. I mean, I want to get a good brine going in here. And in just a few minutes, I'm going to add some of the seasoning too. So I'm making a fennel one today. Break that up a little bit. It was still a little bit too big. And my arms are already tired. So during the summer, we have a lot of youth that comes through and we teach them the gardening. And then we bring them into the kitchen in the afternoon in the heat of the day and we make ferment or salsas or something. And I'll tell you what, you have 15 teenagers making your ferment for you. It's really easy. You get 7 gallons in no time at all. And they do all that cutting and then they start doing the mixing. It really is great to have all those hands in the kitchen. So right now it has already gotten about half the size that it was. So I'm going to go on and add my fennel where I sat it. There it is. And I don't put a whole lot. And you can put in garlic, you can put in onions, carrots, I mean, whatever you like for your ferment. This is one of our most popular ones that we sell. Oh, it already smells good. I wish you guys could smell this. So let's see how much liquid is coming down here in the bottom. The bottom is wet, but it's still not showing a lot of the liquid. I'm going to go on and taste it at this point because I remember I said I kind of do a medium amount of salt. I don't go too low. I don't go too high. So I'm going to taste it. And if it tastes too salty, I know I need to add a lot more cabbage. If it's not salty enough, then I need to add more salt. And it's right on there. It's perfect. So, and I just got a fennel. Okay. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go on and add it to our jar. I'm going to use this one today. Oh, I forgot to get a. These jar funnels really work well. So what I do is I sit my jar into my container and then start filling it. Okay, so I've got it pretty full right now, but we are going to be mashing it down and getting that brine to cover everything. So I'm going to use this today. It works really well. Again, I'm building muscles up, pushing it down really, really good. And squeezing all of the brine out, the juice out of my kraut. And it'll be breaking down even more as I go along here. Sorry, I had somebody come in. I told them I couldn't talk right now. Okay, so fill it up some more here. Does anybody else have any questions yet?
Linda's asking, is less better on spices such as fennel?
I think so. We do a Japanese one that I use quite a bit of spices in it. It's not spicy, but then we have one that is a German sauerkraut too, and it probably has the most spices in it compared to the others. But the fennel one is just very simple, and that fennel just comes through really well with it. So, I mean, it's kind of what you like. I did one class, and a lady put in juniper berries because, I mean, you can do all kinds of spices, and she really liked the taste of the juniper berries, but she put in way too many. And so she told me 2 weeks later when she did it, she was like, oh my gosh, that was so strong in juniper berries. So you can go overboard on it, but you need to know if your spice is a strong flavor or if it's not that strong, then it's not a problem. I find garlic is never really too strong. And one thing on garlic, if you put in whole cloves of garlic, sometimes it will change colors on you. Let me show you one. What was it in? Is it in the sunchokes? Yeah. So, and you guys see the green garlic there? So
Yes.
there's nothing wrong with it. It's just that garlic changed because of the different acid and the bacteria and stuff, and it's still edible. Just looks kind of weird. Only one that changed. The other ones in here are just fine. I mean, that one's just fine too. So, but normally you never see that change if it is ground up or diced up. So it's normally just a large clove that you would see it with. So just keep packing it in here.
Chris, is that a tool that you could get like at a
Yeah,
kitchen supply store or
yeah, they come
online?
in ferment kits. And so the kit normally has a jar with it, and I think sometimes it has a weight, and then normally a little book on how to do it. But I know this is a strange place, but I've seen them at Hobby Lobby to get them. But any of the kitchen stores would have it too. And it really, there, I can see some juice starting to come up. Let me squeeze a little bit more here. Well, you guys can't see it. I might have to get the phone moved over. So, but it is starting to come up above it. And so I'm going to put a little bit more in still. So one of the interesting things when the Pilgrims came over on the Mayflower, and back in that whole time, a lot of them were getting sick, and they found out that they needed to be eating ferments and bringing ferments with them when they're crossing the ocean. And so that's how far back it goes. It kept them from getting sick. Oh, there's a lot of, can you guys see the fluid in here now? I'm going to get it. Can you guys see it? Well, it's there. Trust me, it's there. It's not ready yet, but I'm actually going to stop right now. My arms are tired. I need a teenager to be here to help me. But I'll finish that up in a little bit. So, but ferment has went back many, many years, and it's just so good for us. I got two stories I'm going to tell you real fast about ferments. When I started doing this 30 years ago, the first thing I did was make sauerkraut. And I was so excited and put it down in our root cellar and kept it. I didn't go down and watch it. So somebody told me just ignore it and leave it there. And in 6 weeks, go and check on it and bring it up and enjoy it. So that's what I did. 6 weeks later, brought it up. And they did not go in and explain that it's going to have maybe some bubbling still, or maybe, just sometimes it'll have a little white coating on the top. And brought it up, and, it had been in that constant temperature of, probably 65 to 68 in that root cellar. And this was the summertime, brought it up and sat it in our air conditioned house. And it started really fermenting overnight. We ate it for supper. I left it in on the counter. Next morning I got up and I was like, oh my gosh, what's wrong? I've ruined it. And I threw it all away because I didn't know that with that heat, it was still doing this processing. So then we'll fast forward 2 years later when we started doing our farming. I was just like, okay, I really want to make sauerkrauts and pickles, and I love fermented pickles. And so I kept doing it and would go, and I'm a chef, so I learned about bacteria a little different. You keep everything really clean, and bacteria is bad, and all this stuff. And so I was trying to do this on my own and learn how to do it. and I'd get to that same process. Everybody says, just sit it on your kitchen counter, just watch it go through the process. And I would go do that, and then I'd go, oh my gosh, it's ruined, and I throw it away. And I kept doing it over and over. And I finally took a fermenting class. And the 2 weeks before that, I threw away 2.5 gallons of sauerkraut. And as I'm dumping it in our compost, my mouth is watering because it smells so good. And I'm like, oh my gosh. But it had all this white bubbly stuff on top. So I took this class and I'm telling him about it, and he starts laughing. And he says, okay, what's your background? Forget your background. Forget all that stuff you learned about everything. Bacteria is bad. This is a good bacteria. So I say that if you are someone that is more nervous about seeing those bubbling going on, the fermenting going on and stuff, don't sit it where you're going to see it every day. But if you love to see that type of stuff and you can handle it, put it right there and watch it and enjoy it. Teach your kids about the fermenting process. And sometimes you just have to scrape off a little bit of the white film that's on top. And sometimes even if you've lost too much of the liquid, the brine, then sometimes you'll have to remove maybe the first couple inches, or not that far, not even just a little bit. If it's kind of dark and gross looking, and not really gross, I mean, we're not talking moldy, but you might just remove that, because you do need to keep your ferment under the brine at all the time. And that's what the weights are for. And so another thing is, when this sauerkraut is done and I have brine left, don't throw it away. Put it in, make some homemade salad dressings with it. Drink it. It's still a good probiotic. You can drink it every morning. It's just too good to throw it away.
So Chris, we do have one question in the chat,
Okay.
which is Alice is asking, do you just let it set at room temp if you don't have a root cellar?
Yes. So I have it in our back room, and it stays pretty well 65 to 75 degrees. I mean, because we do have air conditioning, so it's just the regular temperature. And then when it gets through the process, I let my ferments go a lot longer than I think a lot of people do, because I really like that sour flavor. I like that much above sweets. So ferments are my candy. So anyways, I let it go at least 6 to 8 weeks, and then I'll test it and see how it's tasting. And if it's done fermenting and it's got the sourness that I want in it, then I remove it and put it into the walk-in cooler. So cooling it down to the 41 degrees keeps it from continuing fermenting more. And then shelf life is forever, really. I mean, as long as it's not getting too hot. Kimchi is from Korea, and they still do this, but probably not all of them. But they used to bury their pots in the ground and make their kimchi, and that's how they kept it. You got an even temperature all year long, so it wasn't too hot, wasn't too cold, and it was perfect for the fermentation to go through the stages.
And
So
Linda's asking, you don't add any distilled water to the brine then?
not to the cabbage, but I would if I was doing green tomatoes, or which are really good fermented, or whole cucumbers, any of those types of things that I'm not smashing down and getting its own brine out. I add the brine then to it, and that's where I use the distilled water and just add the salt into this, get it all shaken up and dissolved, and then I can just pour it over it. One thing we didn't talk about was when you use the weights. So this way it won't fit in that one. So we're going to say that the brine is all the way over the top, but say it's been sitting for 3 weeks and I noticed that there's not a lot of brine left. It has all kind of come out from under the lid. And so I need to add brine back to it. So I can't add straight water. I have to use a brine, a salty brine. And so I always have some salt water available so that I can go on and add that to the top. And that way it keeps it immersed all the time. Um, let's see. I'm making sure.
So, Chris, I have a question. So,
Uh-huh.
when my grandma made sauerkraut, she would put it in the crock, we would pound it, it'd be in the brine, we would put a tea towel over it, and then when it was done, she would put it up. So she would
Mm-hmm.
she would can it.
Okay. So
Is
yeah, let's
that
talk a little
is
bit
that
about that.
something, yeah, that you do? I mean,
Right. I don't can my probiotics. If I want sauerkraut that's canned, I will do it right now. And so it's when we get it at the grocery store already canned, it's been heated up. You've lost your probiotics if you heat up your any of your product. So any of my ferments, I don't do that. But what I do for when I am labeling up for customers, or say I'm going from the gallon, if I'm doing my personal, I'm going to go on and put these into smaller jars so that I don't have to pull out this big gallon every time. So I sterilize my jars and my lids, okay, and I wear gloves when I'm starting to do this process because I don't want any contamination getting into my product. And then I go on and um, do the, let me get this moved out of the way a little bit. I go on and put it in my jars with my gloves on in a sterilized jar, a sterilized lid. And I've already cooled off my jar. I don't put it in when the jars, like on canning, you're wanting to keep those jars hot. I don't. I don't want it hot. I do not want the probiotics to die. So I let the jars cool off to where they're really not warm to not. I let them cool off a lot. I mean, so they're not hot at all. And then I put the lid on. And so here I just make sure I put plenty of juice on the top. So I don't know if you guys can see that. This is kimchi. And put the lid on tight. And then this goes in, depend on how much I make. Most of it goes back onto our grocery store shelf. So it's still fermenting, but I just keep it nice and tight so it does not go on and continue fermenting and letting the juice come out, or else I stick it in the cooler. Um, so, so it is continuing on unless I have it straight in the cooler. Um, did I answer your question?
yeah, I
Okay.
think that's
Yes. So the important thing is make sure those jars are sterilized. And so if you go on and do that next step of canning it, you have lost the probiotics. It's still good food to eat, but if you're doing it for your gut digestion, um, going on and heating it up into your water bather has gone just changed the whole processing of fermented food. So then it's just sauerkraut or a pickle. So any other questions?
yeah. So I'm curious about how, kombucha, kefir, they're both very popular, and
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people buy those
Right.
at the store. So can you talk to us about how
Yes.
you might make those at
Yes.
home?
So kombucha, and actually, you will catch me calling it kombucha because we've been making it for 30 years, and that's what we used to call it back then. So it's kind of changed its name. Um, it is, you make a tea, a strong sugar sweet tea, and you're using distilled water. Bring it up to a boil, put your tea bags in it, and let it soak. And we normally let it soak overnight and cool all the way down. We don't want any heat in it. And then we put our SCOBY in there. And there's in this one bag here, there's probably 7 or 8 SCOBYs. And there's some of the brine in here to keep it healthy and good. But so we would just take one of those scobies and put on the top, and they just float on top of your jar. And we like it about at 9 days 14 days, I think it tastes very much like vinegar. But 9 days is just perfect. It has now ate the sugar that you had in the tea, so it is no longer a sweet tea. And as a diabetic, those sugars are gone. It fed the SCOBY, and it's a very good product for anybody. It doesn't matter what you have, and you can drink it daily. I love to have it with some fruit in it, and so you do a second processing. Then I would add the fruit and do it for another 2, 3 days. I don't want it to go very long, and then it's just I love it that way. Um, Kefir, I actually have not made it for years because it was one of those that I had to do daily, and I was so busy that I was like, this doesn't work for my lifestyle. Now my starter, my sourdough starter, um, it's I can handle it because I can do it once a week or once every 2 weeks and feed it and make my sourdough bread. And so that one is just easier for the lifestyle that I live. Um, so I mean, there's just all different types of ferments you can do and different ways. We actually have a class coming up that is March 27th from 4 to 7 here at Agape Grow Education Center, and we will be making a sauerkraut, kimchi, and the kombucha. And so that was as a hands-on one. Everybody is going to be doing the process themselves and be able to take home what they've made that evening. So,
And we
any
have
other
people
questions?
from all over the country and all over the world. We have somebody here from Dublin, California,
Cool.
see Idaho. So unfortunately, they won't be able to come in
Well, I
person.
think the one from Dublin ought to just come on and come. You got enough time to book an airplane and get here.
There you go. So how do you think people could dive into this at home? Like any tips?
I would say the cabbage right now, making a sauerkraut, it would be the easiest to do. Um, it's just so very easy, and it's really fun to get your kids in the kitchen with you and let them help make it. And what we have found is when kids are working with it, they are more likely to eat it also, so that they can be eating some healthy product. So get your kids in there and work on a sauerkraut, and don't put a whole lot in it. Pick maybe garlic and some carrots in there and one seasoning to start with, and just do a well. This was basically two heads of cabbage, and just see how easy it is.
My dogs are playing, so I'm trying to stay muted as much as possible. But Alice is wondering, are you going to cover it with the cabbage leaves, or how do you
I
finish?
am. I am. So I'll go on and do that right now. But before I really get done, I'm going to be smashing and putting the rest of this in here, getting more liquid. But so what I do with the cabbage leaves. So say we've got our liquor, our brine over the top. I take some of the bigger, nicer looking cabbage leaves. So I don't want this. This has some gross stuff on it, so I'm just going to take it off. Now I still already washed these, okay? So, and then I'm just going to be pushing it down in here. And I want to push it way down into the edges so that it really covers that edge and the brine does not come up above these. To me, this is the easiest way. Then I don't have to use that weight, or you can do the weight. Um, but this is really, it's pushing it down. And I mean, I'm losing my juice, but see, you're not going to lose your cabbage at all. Okay. It really locks it in there really well. And so that's my favorite way to do it. If I'm not doing a cabbage, so say I'm doing the hot peppers or something like that, and I definitely need a weight to hold it down because there's nothing. I'm not going to put cabbage into with my hot peppers. Then the weight works great. I also will take a bag of the brine in a little Ziploc bag, and put the weight down in here. I'll just do it right here like this. And then take my bag, and I don't have a bag out here, with the brine in it and put it on top and then seal it up and just do a very light, loose seal with my canning jar lid. Or I can get those nipples and do that too. And they go right with the canning lid. So a jar lid like this, and put it on there loosely. And that brine will keep it from things getting into it. But if too much of my brine leaves from underneath, I have that brine right there. And I can open it up and put some more into it. Um, so that's the biggest thing. If you put it on your kitchen counter and you are nervous about too much fluid coming out, you could do it to where you're loosening it up every day and letting it air out, breathe out, kind of burp it. Um, I just don't worry about it. I'm too busy to go and do that every day. I do sit my jars down when it's doing the fermenting on a tray or a plate, because it is going to, some of that brine come out and go spill over. So that way you're not getting your counter all dirty, and you can just clean that up daily or every few days, and it makes it really easy that way.
So this is an introductory class workshop, which means sometimes, the more you learn, the more you think, maybe this is a little more work than I want to go through. You go to market with your stuff. So if somebody's in the Kansas City area, how could they find you?
Yeah, so we go to the Independence Farmers Market, which is up on the square, and that is still, we're doing once a month market until May. So the first Saturday of the month we're there. So we have one more month for that. Or you could come right here to Agape Grow Education Center, and we have a little grocery store here that you could get it. We will be doing a market in Kansas this year at Farm School Gibbs Road. I'm trying to think what the Casey Farm School is what it's called now, and that's a Wednesday market. So we'll be doing that one also, and that's in the afternoon and early evening. So there's three different areas you'll be able to go to. If you're, we will be, it won't be for a while, but we will be doing a small senior center market in Oak Grove too. So, and for the one in Dublin, I guess I could send you some ferment in the mail. Well, I don't know if it'd go through customs, so.
Yeah. So just to wrap us up, can you give us just the broad range of things you can ferment? Like, we know we
Yeah,
kind of covered sort of the obvious ones, but
right.
what's the range here?
Almost anything. We did crab apples, which is a Japanese delicacy. So you ferment them up, you keep them whole, and then when you take them out, you roll them in a salt and a sugar coating, and so it's that's one unusual thing. We have done. I've got one here, rutabagas. Okay, so which is something that's really unusual, and the sunchokes or Jerusalem artichokes. Um, Pretty well anything. Oh, tomatoes, salsa, all that. This one is just a tomato. I did a bunch of cherry tomatoes, and then they fermented and I blended them up and made a tomato sauce. So you could use this in your Bloody Marys. You could, so that it makes it healthy, right? Um, you could, I make chili with it. Um, I mean, all kinds of stuff. And so it's a good, the problem is when I'm making chili, it is now I'm heating it up and the probiotics are no good, but still a healthy product. So you could drink it as a tomato juice. Um, so a lot of different things. I love doing the green tomatoes. Green tomatoes are real sour anyways in their taste. And fermenting them is just really, to me, is really good. I love that extra sour that they do. One of the reasons why I really love fermenting is in the summer, well, early in September, October, November is when all of the harvest is really coming in, and I am so busy. But I to can everything up, I spend hours and hours, but I can come in and do the same amount of product in less than an hour by fermenting it, and then it going, okay, it's done. It's in there and it's doing its thing on its own. But canning, I'd spend, about 4 to 5, 6 hours in making that same amount up. So I love that because I can get a harvest done quickly and get the food up while it has the most nutrition in it. Any other questions?
Oh, Linda says, don't think customs would thank you, although she'd love it. Very clear. Thanks so much for imparting your knowledge. I'll definitely be taking the plunge at last. And
Good.
other Linda says, love this class. Thank you so much. So we'll be sending out the recording to everyone who registered today, and then you can access the link through the email sent, and then also through our YouTube. And Alice is asking, where do you get SCOBY?
Most of the time, if you ask around some of your garden friends or homeschoolers, I get on Facebook and I go, oh, I need some. And my friends will go, oh, I've got some. I had some brought to me. In fact, what I showed you there, a friend brought to me last month. She's from Oklahoma. And she goes, well, I'm coming up in a couple of weeks. I'll bring you a bunch. So, so I'm preparing for my big class. And so I need enough for that, everybody to take one home. And so that's kind of what I do. I mean, it grows pretty quick. And, and so every time you do this process, you're getting another SCOBY from it. And so you to share and tell people about it. It's just such an easy process and to keep it going.
So I was wondering, with your cabbage, are you going to then, how do you finish? Are you going to put a cheesecloth on it or a
No,
lid?
I'm going to use a canning lid. So the two-piece canning lid, so that it will be able to, and I'll put it on. I didn't pull one out right now, but
so how's the air come out? I thought you had to have something. Yeah.
No, you don't have to, because I don't put it on tight,
Oh,
and I'm
okay.
not sealing it. So, okay. So I just put it on very loose, and I mean, it's loose. And then as that gas is built up, it just comes out really easy when I'm doing it in the canning one. Now it popped. I could go on and do some of my lids and put a hole right down the middle and use this, because that works really well too. And then it just has that. And these I got at a beer store, so for brewing. But this just works really easy for me. So I just know I don't put the lid on tight at all. So, and you could, if you're,
I was gonna say we're at time, but go ahead, Chris. Finish your thought.
The cheesecloth, I've done that many times. If it's a larger one, I just put a cheesecloth over the top, and then I still put my lid on loosely, and it just works really well.
All right, so thank you everyone for your time today, especially to Chris. This has been really educational. I put our URL in the chat. You should be able, on our homepage, see our upcoming webinars. On Friday, we have a Downsizing for Good webinar we're doing in partnership with AARP. And then April's webinar is on green burial, non-topic we probably want to think about, but inevitably we're all going to have to consider what we're going to do at the end of our lives. So feel free to join us for that, and keep up with what Chris is doing on Facebook. Chris, you want to give your Facebook account?
Yes, it's under Precious Petals and Pepperberries is our farm part. And then we also have the education part is called Agape Grow Education Center. And so I post on there all the time and updates on different classes that we have and just everything that we're doing here at the Farm and Education Center.
Right. Well, with that, we're going to sign off. But thanks again, everyone. And I will get this recording out in the next day or two.
All right.
Have a
Thank
great
you.
rest of your day, everyone.
All right.
Thank
Get out there and ferment.
You're making us curious. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.